Lovely. Okay, so moving on, we are delighted to welcome our next keynote speaker, Mattan Lurie. Are you with us, Mattan?
Yes.
So Mattan is a senior advisor at Brine, a leading accelerator that is investing in food tech. Brink's food program aims to solve inefficiencies in the food system to enhance sustainability through investments in plant-based meat substitutes, cellular agriculture, and fermentation-based proteins. At Brink, Mattan serves as a member of the investment committee and an advisor to portfolio companies, where he worked closely with food tech CEOs on strategy and capital formation. Mattan is also a venture partner at Hanako Ventures, a VC fund that invests in early stage startups and growth stage technology companies in Israel and also in the US. Hanako itself has invested in leading agri-food tech companies such as Redefine Meat, a leading 3D meat printing company, C-Tree, a software company that optimizes fruit tree yields, and InFarm, a breakthrough vertical farming company. That's quite an accomplished background you have there, a lot of experience. So naturally, I'm very much interested to hear what you've got to say. Thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We will move at a fairly rapid clip. A little bit from a high level of what's driving the growth in the sector. It is primarily uplift of the world's population as the world becomes wealthier. We're looking at a situation where 2/3 of the world will be middle class in the next 10 years. That in turn translates into increased consumption in meat. We're looking at meat consumption, already one of the world's largest sectors with $1.4 trillion a year, doubling over the next 20 years. So how are we going to meet this meat demand? Well, we can't do it in the traditional ways we have. We can't do it through simple animal agriculture because it's neither economical nor sustainable. And what we are seeing is that food tech is stepping into that gap. And first and foremost, we see plant-based protein and plant-based meat analogs taking up a very significant portion of the protein stack and also rapidly growing. Other cellular agriculture and precision fermentation derived deep tech meat or lab grown or synthetic meat are also underway of development. And so that's also going to take up a significant portion of the protein stack. We have numerous drivers that are in support of the space, including changing consumer demands, increasing government support from a national security standpoint, and new and emerging technologies. But this is the slide that really gets us most excited. So this is showing just how rapid the drop in costs is for cellular agriculture. And we're seeing cellular agriculture costs drop even more rapidly than transistors dropped through Moore's law, which enabled the computer revolution, and even more quickly than the cost of genomic sequencing, which really drove a lot of the biotech innovations that we're seeing today. So the cost of cellular agriculture is dropping even more rapidly. In addition, we're seeing that animal agriculture is growing slightly more expensive year on year. So what we are seeing is that we are in a world where synthetic proteins are going to hit parity with animal-grown proteins within the next 5 to 10 years. From an investment standpoint, what does this mean? Well, if you had been an early investor in Impossible Foods or Beyond Meat, you would have seen triple-digit multiples on your investment. Impossible Foods is almost a 600-fold return in valuation between the Series A and the more recent Series F. So this is a little bit about how we're approaching the world. We are investing in companies across plant-based cellular agriculture and precision fermentation. And we're investing at the early stage. So what are the kind of companies that one can see within this space? We have invested in companies that are making lab-grown fish, lab-grown heritage meats, and also using precision fermentation to synthesize proteins. So things like making real human breast milk proteins in a laboratory for use in infant formula, or creating hybridized versions between plant-based and animal-based protein, such as inserting animal DNA into shiitake mushrooms and using that as a scaffolding for growing a meat-like product, or growing a meatier version of plant-based products. We've invested in niche plant-based foods, such as companies that are making halal meats or making peanut protein low-cost meats for the Chinese market. And we've also invested very broadly across ingredients and companies that are using insect protein or algae. We've achieved very strong returns on those investments. However, I would say that this really points more to a bubble that's forming within this space. So we have been fairly immune, and if anything, have been beneficiaries of the bubble that is being formed inside of food tech. However, that's because we're investing very, very early. We're typically the first money in. What I believe is that this space is become dramatically overvalued. And what we're starting to see now is a correction. So we've seen declines in the market caps of the handful of listed food tech companies that are out there, such as Beyond Meat, which has lost a very significant portion of its market cap, or Else Baby Nutrition, which is also a publicly listed company focused on plant-based infant formula, which also had lost a very significant portion of its market cap. We're seeing this sort of correction happening across the entire space, with the privately held companies also increasingly being pushed to revalue in their subsequent rounds. So we think this is actually healthy for the sector. The vast overexuberance and high valuations that we've seen aren't good for anybody. We want investors to come in and make money in a rational way, with the future rounds being reasonable. And unfortunately, what we've seen is that subsequent rounds in the most recent market have been just crazy. Companies are raising at exorbitant valuations. So what we're seeing now in terms of a correction is very, very healthy. I think with that, I will table it and yield the time back. We would be happy to take questions later during the panel. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mattan. That was really insightful. I think it's interesting to see that you are very sort of community focused, especially given obviously you've got various different niches in the market. So it's really good to see how plant-based has actually expanded to those communities as well. And I think for sure there will be some questions about that, and I'd like to touch upon that later on if you are able to stay for the panel discussion.
Sure. Looking forward to the panel. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Lovely.